Can you sum up, like, I'm curious, like you've spent time with a bunch of like interesting founders, like maybe for like Cruise or Oculus or Descript, what is the like one sentence thing that makes their culture different? Like if I were to sum it up for Slack, for instance, it was like craftsmanship, which was like at now is kind of normal for a B2B company, but at the time was like very weird for a B2B company to care about, right? In a B2B software product. And it really stood out in both the people and the product.
I think Cruise, I do think cultures obviously are first embodied by the culture of the founder, which you just mentioned. Like, I think if you're trying to figure out what the culture of a company is going to be, and you're an investor, you spend more time with the founder. And in many ways, I think a lot of the time I spend with a team and Spark itself spends with the team is trying to almost like extract both the positives and the negatives of the founder and help them understand where they're coming from, because it's gonna manifest itself in a million different ways inside.
Right. The trade-offs are always there, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So I think in Cruise, it's very much shaped by Kyle's long-term patience and long-term view. Like, don't do anything unless it is a dent in the universe, which is something that we all, I think, say. It's like a thing said around the Valley because we think we're all supposed to say it, but very few people are really thinking in decades. And partially because of where he had come from. He was a co-founder of Twitch. He'd already had an exit. He was already successful. And so the thing was like, if I'm going to go do a startup, one, I already know how hard it is. Like, I've been in and around the YC community enough. I've done this once before. Like, I know this is crazy hard. So if I'm going to go through the torture of what it means to really build a startup, then it better do something as crazy and as seismic as getting drivers out of their cars to save millions of lives a year. And so that encapsulated the whole business. Like, even up until him resigning last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before that, I think he'd done a really good job, even at scale, of somewhat insulating the internal culture of that business, even at thousands of employees, from really worrying about what was going on outside and just thinking not about what went in the headlines last night or not what was on Twitter tomorrow, but like, the job is 100,000 vehicles on the road, self-driving, no safety drivers, as safety-oriented as possible, as safe as possible. So when things go wrong, when you decide to sell to GM instead of being independent, when you decide to push back launch by months and months and months because you worry about safety, as you spun back out from GM and raised from SoftBank and a bunch of other people at like whatever that was, $20 billion, like all of that just felt, you kind of like rode all the choppy waters much more evenly as a whole org, not just Kyle because of him. I'll pick another, like Discord. Like, I think Jason and Stan as a founding team, also second-time founders. It wasn't for them about, I think, super long-term. I think it was just like, if we're going to do it, we want to feel it innately. That feeling of like, I'm not doing anything for metrics. I'm not doing anything for some external motivation. I'm doing something for an intrinsic motivation. Why is it that all social 1.0 is, as it scales, the authenticity dies in those platforms? And like, how do we build something that still feels authentic for us, that we'd still want to use 10 years from now? And so, yeah, I think taste is really, like, for Jason, like, it's taste, and that like deep sense of authenticity just has this wiring that there can be lots of noise in the room, lots of other things happening, people chirping about lots of different stuff. And he kind of still centers back to like, I don't know, it just feels like false. Again, these things that sound easy, all these things sound easy, but they are incredibly hard to actually execute on.
As somebody who has been rejected by Spark, a founder who has been rejected by Spark, the lessons I'm taking away from this are, I need to get more weird and think longer term. So that's what I'm taking away.